grumpy.
The Thai Bistro in downtown Gresham.
Was it good?
We have a
It was
reputation.
really, really good, but my stomach can't really tolerate Thai food.
I love Thai.
I don't do Thai food spicy at all. And this was mild. It was like,
Rich Allen,
oh, that's
he
mild.
voted against the dissolution.
I went to one out
Maybe I
in,
paid for it.
I went out to, or went to one in Gladstone,
Paper is a little motivated.
I don't know, 2 weeks ago.
No, I don't read it very much.
The, oh, I gotta get it, Lucky Frog or Golden Frog or I don't know, something frog anyway. But it was good. I'm just short on the floor over there.
It's too good. Okay, and is this your credit card?
You got your hand carry in there?
The city credit
search
card
that way, I
with
don't
your
forget
name,
it.
right? Okay.
I thought I was gonna need a pen and some stuff out there.
How's work going?
Good, it's been.
Was this the one where it
I
was
start tomorrow. Tomorrow I start this 6-week class on Thursdays, every Thursday for the next 6 weeks.
That would have been, yes, that would have been Linda.
HR supervisory.
Linda Florence, yes.
Wow.
And then Saturday, Easter weekend, like holiday weekend, so I got a 9-hour class on Saturday. And then follow up every Tuesday for 9 weeks after that for 2 hours on Tuesday morning.
I already have people calling me about the banking service.
They send their something they can usually.
Yeah, well, this one's like it's called TMA, it's like total analysis or total management. Yeah, it's
Turns
total.
out it's the guy that owns
I
the
go to that.
RV park I use out there.
Nice.
So, but it's like, so I'm looking at my calendar for like the next, 6 to 8
7
weeks.
o'clock.
So it's like,
All right, I'm going to call meeting to order.
going on.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order Wednesday, April 1st, 2015. Roll call, please.
Counselor Param,
Here.
Counselor Kremeyer,
Here.
Counselor Owen,
Here.
Counselor Boris,
Here.
Counselor Kasakis,
Here.
and Mayor Tostery.
Here, and Counselor Cooper will be calling in on the red light presentation. All right, if you'd please stand with me and for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item is the presentation of the red light camera 2.5, 2.5 year review. Chief Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. This is an abbreviated version of the full presentation that was made on March 4th, 2015 at a work session. So I apologize, some of it's repetitive, but it also, for those that weren't able to view it at the work session, it'll be an opportunity to have some of this information. So as a reminder, when we issue a citation or review to determine if a citation should be issued under the intersection safety program, the driver must be the registered owner by Oregon law. We follow a policy here that officers are told to use the same discretion when reviewing videotapes and photographs, the same discretion that they would use if they observed the violation while patrolling. If an officer approves the violation, then Redflex mails the citation. The registered owner can file a certificate of innocence if the registered owner was not the driver. In a letter that is sent along with the citation to the registered owner, there is a link, so in addition to the photograph sent, so that they can actually view the approximate 12-second videotape of the violation. A driver can pay or appear in Fairview Municipal Court, and then depending on the criteria of the judge, they have the option for our traffic safety school coordinated by Sergeant Kirby. Some of the reasons that an officer would reject, and as you know, we've talked before that we reject almost 60% of the violations captured at that intersection. Obviously, driver not the registered owner is an automatic rejection. We call that a gender mismatch. Date of birth does not match the driver. We've had a few of those where it's obvious that the date of birth on the registered owner is not the age of the driver. Sun glare has been a problem at that intersection. Right vehicle stopped past the stop line. This occurs a lot, especially on a right turn. Vehicle did not, only did a slow roll making a right turn, and a very slow roll where they'll almost stop. Again, the officer can use discretion and not cite that vehicle. Paper plates, camera malfunctions, and incomplete or missing Department of Motor Vehicle information. And then there have been occasions where somebody has moved and they failed to notify DMV of their new address and were unable to find them. Very briefly, we took the first 6 months of citation data. Again, I remind you, in May of 12, we issued warnings, 30-day of warnings. We took that out, and we looked at the first 6 months of citation data, and we issued 1,488 citations. I looked at the last 6 months of available data. For the last presentation, we had issued 742 citations, so we had a decrease just a little under 50% first 6 months compared to the second 6 months of citations issued. I also thought it was important that we look, the whole point of this is to try and correct driver behavior, make that intersection safer, get people to stop for red lights as required by law. Obviously, the closer to home, we hope the more impact that we have in reaching those folks through our education program. We looked at 97024 zip code. We can actually get a zip code report. We found that in the first 6 months, we issued 183 citations to individuals, drivers with Fairview addresses. This last 6 months, 54. So the first 6 months to the last 6 months, we show a 70.49% decrease in the number of Fairview residents receiving red light citations at that intersection. And then there's a month-to-month, hopefully you can see it, with total citations as compared to the Fairview residents. We also looked at total number of images captured versus number of citations issued. There's the number, 39.33, I think it was, percent issued versus images captured. One of the concerns was the traffic count at that intersection, and there was a belief that one of the concerns when we looked at the project was that people would avoid that intersection, thereby avoiding the city of Fairview because of the red light camera. So we actually did a traffic study, first 6 months of operation, first full months of citations versus the last full month of data, and we found that there actually was an increase in the traffic at that intersection. And we looked at 3 different months of the year to try and be fair. Just some average statistics that we're gleaning nationally, that 63 people a month die in red light running crashes. 378 million in costs each month were attributed to red light crashes. In 2011, red light crashes caused 118,000 injuries. In 2011, about half of all people injured in red light crashes were people other than the violator. In the past decade, red light crashes have killed nearly 9,000 people. 93%, this is an interesting statistic to me, that 93% of the drivers believe running red lights is unacceptable, yet 1 in 3 drivers admit doing so in the past 30 days. Total red light running crash fatalities decreased 22% from 2007 to 2011 as the number of communities with red light cameras increased by 135%. 201 fewer people died in red light crashes in 2011 as compared to 2007, saving $1.2 billion in costs. Within a few months after stopping red light cameras in Virginia Beach, rates for running red lights tripled, and within a year the rate had quadrupled and was 4 times higher. A 2012 Texas study found that right-angle red light crashes decreased by 24% at intersections with cameras. And then a couple more. 2011 study by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found that red light cameras lowered red light running fatalities by 24% and the rate for all signalized intersections at 17%. A 2011 survey of 14 large cities with long-standing red light camera programs found 2/3 of the drivers supported their use. A single fatal crash cost society $6.43 million in 2013 and includes costs to the families, the victims, the government, the insurers, and the taxpayers. We covered briefly also during the work session the traffic data, the accident data provided by the Oregon Department of Transportation. They gave us a caveat that prior to 2011, their accident data may be different than how they count it today. They actually didn't count some accidents, so that they said they didn't want us to rely heavily on that data, but nonetheless, that information was used early on during this program, finding that there were 12 accidents, 8 with injuries between 2006 and 2010. There are the causes. 5 were for failure to stop for the red light, 5 were for following too closely, rear-end collisions, 1 was for an improper turn, and 1 was due to driver inattention that was a rear-end collision. And these are based on the causes indicated on the accident report as told to the officer by the drivers. Here's the data. Then we gleaned a little more closely 2011, 12, 13, and 14. 2014 data was not available from ODOT, so I actually went through and hand searched all of our accident reports at the Fairview Police Department and found 2 as indicated here. And 1 person was injured in those accidents. I wanted to again share with you just a couple of examples of close calls that we have had at this intersection. You can see this is the southbound traffic. Maybe. Where's the mouse? Oh. Thank you. Much better.
I'm sure your car's not there.
It's a crazy one.
This is the one we talked about that happened last, I think, November. You'll have to watch quickly. They're doing 85 miles an hour, and it's a DUI, and you'll see them lose control in the corner and crash.
Physics on the whole thing. No traction.
Another one, November. This is a driver indicated that they fell asleep. One of the questions that comes up is the right turns, and that we're citing people for barely rolling through right turns. You'll hear different excuses. As I've indicated before when we talked about in court, the camera captures the speed of the vehicles. The average speed of a vehicle making a right turn without stopping is about 12 miles an hour, 12 to 15 miles an hour. And you can see here's a couple of typical examples of right turns that were cited. We've also discussed the law requires that a vehicle come to a complete stop, a total cessation of movement of the wheel, tires, before they cross the stop line. If there's not a stop line present, the stop line is that line of the crosswalk. So you're required to stop completely before you cross over a crosswalk. However, as the officers evaluate the stops at our intersection, this is a typical rejection because they actually do stop. Even though you can see here we have kids close by. Rolled across the crosswalk but did stop, that was a rejection. Same here. This is actually a left turn where they blow through the light and then they realize and then they stop. This is the last one, mechanic stop, but rejected. So the first 6 months of data compared to the last 6 months, we found violations were down 49.86%. Fairview residents were down 70.49% of the violations issued. We found that accidents are down,
Just finishing up his presentation.
that injury accidents are down, and the traffic count at the intersection is up. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the chief? All right, seeing none, thank you, chief. We are on to council business. Authorize the city administrator to extend or terminate the red light camera contract.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. So the contract with Red Flex, we need to notify them today regarding our intent to either extend or terminate. So what I'm asking for is a motion to direct me in whichever direction as a policy you would like to go, and then I will notify Red Flex this evening. Some current just reminders about that particular contract. What it would do, it would maintain the current agreement that we have. We would have met the terms of the initial agreement. So what that means is if we opted to terminate, let's say you renewed it and 3 months from now you decided, no, we really do not want to participate in this program, you could notify them with a 30 days requirement that you are going to terminate that program. And there would be no penalty to you for doing that because the initial term is where the penalties were included for the infrastructure. Or not penalties, but cost to get out of the contract. So that's where we are at. You can renew for 1 year, 1 year terms for up to 5 years, maintaining the current terms of the existing contract.
Okay, we need a motion.
Yeah, Mayor. Can we just make a motion and then discussion? Or
Yes,
you want me to talk about
we'll
that?
get a motion in a second and discuss.
Okay.
And Councilor Cooper would like to go first because he's on the phone
To talk now?
after we have the motion and second.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we extend the red light contract camera for 1 year.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Councilor Cooper is on the phone tonight, and we are going to let him speak first.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Chief Johnson, first I want to thank you for doing the presentation, although I missed this one, I did see the prior one. And after, doing much of my research on red light cameras in other municipalities, I want to thank the Fairview Police Department for the integrity of this system, and that I have never heard anybody complain about anything regarding this red light camera system. So hats off to the Fairview Police Department for all of its efforts in dealing out with this program. Also, I think the issue has been discussed repeatedly, so we shouldn't dwell too much on it. But I mean, the red light camera is doing exactly as it was intended to do when it was installed. Crashes are down, injuries are down, citations are down. And not only has it brought a direct benefit to the city intersection, but has brought an indirect benefit to the city as it allowed us to hire an additional officer to patrol the rest of the city and accomplish a council goal in having 2 officers 24/7. So the red light camera has done a tremendous job, not just in the intersection, but in the whole city. So on this vote, I cannot, in good conscience, vote on a measure that will provably endanger the Fairview residents. By pulling those red light cameras out, increased accidents will occur, as has been established by a previous document I've already put in the public record. So, that said, let's get the vote over.
All right, Councilor Owen.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of support the reason that I made the motion this evening. I know that there's been a lot of discussion, and we've had a number of meetings about the red light camera. I know I've heard issues raised from local businesses that perceive that the red light camera creates issues for them and has reduced the number of customers or people that service their businesses. However, I would say that in some cases, depending on what the type of the business is, over in the Wood Village area, I mean, we've had a number of other businesses that have established themselves, and so I think some of it is just kind of the normal competitive spirit that goes on as it relates to the different types of places that have opened up. I think from a data perspective, I mean, it is nice to see that when this thing started off in the first month, which was looked to be like one of the worst months, there were 335 citations issued. I mean, it's actually good to see that they've went down, but they've went down significant. November 14, there were 87, and then January of 15, there were 137. So it went from a 335 to 137. So to me, it would at least indicate that it is effective at causing people to stop running red lights. And for people that would make an argument that this is a cash generator for the city, I would kind of step back and say, you know, as you've looked and the chief has indicated what they use their basis for issuing tickets, I think they've been very thoughtful, you know, as they evaluate those, and I have never felt like this has been a cash machine, at least for the pure reason for making it cash. Personally, just from I know we hear people up here sometime talk about being data-driven, and I think that if you're looking at this from a data perspective, you would support extending this agreement. If you are maybe in a position where you just don't like red light cameras, or you think that having a potential speed camera in the school zone and the red light camera at Halsey is a reason to not renew the agreement, I would encourage you to just say that. And just, you know, I think it'd be good for everybody just to say why it is that they're not interested in participating in the program. And that's all I had for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kasakis.
I'm going to repeat a lot of what you've heard, but I am going to request, and I don't know whether this is a place to do it, but definitely the vote by roll call. I'm requesting that. And I would request that the Outlook really delve into this issue and print the facts so that the citizens of Fairview get a feel of the Fairview City Council. And I would remind everybody that we're not making personal votes, that we're voting for the city and for the citizens of Fairview. But some facts that you've heard. The red light camera has significantly reduced traffic violations at the intersection of Fairview Parkway and Halsey. We heard a presentation that red light cameras cause rear-end collisions and hurt people. Well, the fact is this particular intersection and this particular red light camera has not created that issue. We're not seeing that. It has not generated complaints from the city of Fairview. The citizens in Fairview have not come to us, have not come to the city and complained about the red light camera. We heard that it is going to affect business, and People are going to lose revenues because people are not going to go through this intersection. But data has shown that the red light camera has not reduced the traffic flow through that intersection. The red light camera does not make the citizens of Fairview or any citizen pay revenue to the city of Fairview. If they're law-abiding citizens, there is no violation and there is no penalty. Photo radar has generated enough revenue that it's allowed us to hire another police officer, giving us 2 officers 24/7 protection. So we've been able to increase public safety for the citizens of Fairview through the violations that have happened at that intersection, that only the people driving the vehicles control those violations. The mayor had a town hall meeting about photo radar in the school zone. And the issue came up about, well, you've got photo radar at Fairview Parkway and Halsey. Excuse me. And now you're proposing at putting photo radar 300 yards, 500 yards down Halsey in the school zone. And when this came up, not one citizen complained about that, which tells me they're more concerned about accident levels at that intersection, and they're more concerned about the safety of our kids and the fact that there are 2 photo radars close together. So if we're listening to our citizens, we had no negative response from that issue. Research has shown that once radar is removed from an intersection, that intersection returns to pre-radar violation and accident levels. And if you Google this, that nationally and in Canada, every time radar's been removed, the violations have increased, and so have the accidents in those intersections. And I believe if we want to talk about the city being liable, because in the presentation we heard about rear-end collisions, it puts the city in a position of being liable because we created this accident scenario. I believe that now that we know we are decreasing violations and accidents and knowingly take that away, this now puts the city in a more liable position if someone were to be injured after we took that out. In fact, I might just support that individual in a case like that. Should this council vote not to continue that red light camera, it came up in a work session, that we could fund this police officer, oh, we'll just take it out of reserves. Well, the reality is this city in the next 5 to 6 years is going to be faced with significant projects and significant amounts of money that we're going to have to find from somewhere to fund. And if we just willy-nilly start dipping into revenues and our reserves, we're going to find ourselves very, very short. And the fact is, we're not just losing the approximately, I believe it's around $135,000 in revenues. We now have to pick up the cost of that police officer. So we're actually taking a hit of about $250,000 if we do not vote on this. I think this is significant. And each individual that drives through the intersection of Fairview Parkway and Halsey controls whether or not they get a violation notice. They are totally in control of their destiny, not the city. And as demonstrated by Chief Johnson, we're pretty darn lenient. We give the benefit of the doubt always to the driver when issuing a citation. And I'll remind everybody that this project was done at no cost to the city. We didn't fund the radar, we didn't fund the cameras, we didn't fund the lights. The bottom line is that the photo radar has reduced traffic violations and accidents at Fairview Parkway and Halsey, and has enhanced the safety of all citizens of Fairview through the funding of an additional police officer. So I encourage the city and the members of Fairview to really look closely at this council vote. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Perez.
I'll be really quick. One thing that Councilor Owen brought up is data, and I am very data-driven. And I'm concerned over the failure to show data that also shows an increase in rear-end collisions nationally when they're studying this. This is a contentious issue throughout the country. In fact, in California, 60 cities have canceled their red light contracts. There's a reason for that. So when we look at the data that's here versus the data that we can look up, I think we need to look at independent data. And when I look at independent data, I'm getting a different picture than what's here. We have the Halsey Corridor project coming up that we're supporting. The red light camera is not welcoming. It's not what I want to see for the entrance to Fairview, to the entrance of the Halsey Corridor. During the town hall meeting, there was 15 to 20 residents there. I don't think that that's an adequate indication of how our citizens feel about the red light camera. I knocked on hundreds of doors during my campaign, and I heard a lot of negativity about the red light camera program. So I think holding a town meeting where we're hearing from a small percentage of our constituents is not an adequate failure or an adequate. Samantha, can you just verify $250,000 for one officer? Is that the liability of the funding?
You mean the shortfall that would...
Right.
The budget is including there's $160,000 in anticipated resources, and that's gross.
Okay.
Then you pay an additional, of that, you pay about $45,000 to the company for the technology and the process and all the back-end administrative work.
Mm-hmm.
We also pay a couple thousand for our judge, for additional court. So it ends up, and our officer, it does fund an officer
Right.
currently, and a fully loaded officer is about $120,000 to $125,000, not including all of their training.
Okay. On an annual basis, how much money on average is going to Red Flex?
It depends on the number of it depends on the number of citations, how many citations are paid for each individual approach. What is budgeted, it's dropped significantly every year.
Right.
It's currently at about 45,000, I think, is what we're budgeted for this year, for the current fiscal year, and we're anticipating that to go even further down next year
Yeah.
because of the bell curve.
And even statewide, I have concerns. That's $45,000 of Oregonian money. There's not a lot of out-of-state people on there getting these tickets that's leaving the state of Oregon too. So that also concerns me. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Prom.
Good evening, everyone. So I've been a practicing chiropractor for 16 years. My practice consists mostly of motor vehicle crash patients. I treat dozens of motor vehicle crash patients every week. I've studied the statistics on why motor vehicles crashes occur for many, many years. The national statistics say that red light cameras do increase rear-end collisions. Because our intersection is such a low-volume intersection, we cannot do proper statistical analysis by saying, yes, so far we haven't seen rear-end collisions increase. But if you had 2 rear-end collisions in this year, then it would be increasing like 200%. So if you want to throw out little statistics like that, you can do that. You can manipulate statistics in a lot of different ways. I know from the patients I treat that rear-end collisions do occur from red light cameras because the people that drive cars are humans. And people react differently to a red light intersection. They either slam on their brakes many times, and because they don't want to run that yellow light and potentially risk a ticket, and then the inattentive driver behind them will crash into them. And we have multiple inattentive drivers, and that's the major cause of accidents, is texting. And because of the people are texting and looking at their phones, distracted, that is one of the reasons why rear-end collisions increase. And it's just a matter of time that it will increase at this intersection also, I believe. Another reason the traffic accidents increase at red light intersections is because some people will accelerate to try to beat that red light before they get a flash.
So there's, I understand what Councilor Katsakis is saying. Yes, so far, we've had one rear-end collision there, and according to the police report, it was not caused by the red light camera. But we really need to look at all the statistics. I think this has always been a revenue thing and not a safety issue. I've been a part of the Public Safety Advisory Committee since its onset, before I was a member of the City Council. It seemed to me that the primary goal of the Public Safety Advisory Committee has always been to find ways to generate additional income for the police department. We've done studies on how can we fund this? Can we give everybody a $250 to $750 fee on their utility bill like Gresham does? We've discussed a bond levy. The chief even threw out a proposal once that the city buy a mobile truck scale so we can deploy it on I-5 because in way overweight vehicles, because those fines are in the thousands of dollars. I do not believe this has statistically ever been classified as a dangerous intersection. If you compare it to other intersections in Portland or in East County, it certainly is not a dangerous intersection. Yes, we have crashes there, but I think it's placed there because it is a convenient source of revenue at that intersection.
Councilor Katsakis.
Just a couple rebuttals. If Councilor Veruz was listening, the compound effect of losing this is $250,000. We have to fund the police officer, plus we lose the revenue. That's $250,000. I chaired PSAC for 2 years, sat on PSAC for 3, and at not one time was the focus of this committee ever to look at revenue or creating funds for the police department. Never happened, didn't exist. We looked at the stats of this intersection, in fact gave a unanimous recommendation to the City Council for the red light camera. So just a couple clarifications.
Thank you. Councilor Cremeyer.
Where to start? There have been a lot of data thrown out, research data on pro red light cameras. There's been data thrown out, that is against the red light cameras, and I think what you have to do is you have to look at the data and take it for face value. Some of the data is going to be skewed because of the people that are putting the data together. And some of the data is not going to be skewed because it's done by independent research. So I think, just as many people that are pro red light camera, there's just as many people that can come up and produce good data that's anti red light camera. So I think we have to keep that in mind. One of the pieces that comes to mind when I make that comment is, one of the pieces of data that we hear or that we've heard tonight is that the traffic flow has actually increased over here on Fairview Parkway and Halsey, where the red light cameras are over the last few years since the red light camera inception. But what we don't hear is what the traffic flow is doing in other intersections like 201st and Halsey or 223rd and Halsey. And I would really like to see that data to see if the percentage of traffic has increased exponentially quite a bit higher than Fairview Parkway and Halsey. Because I bet if we looked at that data, we would probably find that, but that has been failed to be brought up and mentioned as far as I know. As far as, dipping into reserves to pay for this officer that is in question because of the red light camera money potentially going away and other projects that we have before us in the future. Here in the city of Fairview, we have dedicated funds for a lot of the projects that we are working on. As far as we have street funds, we have sewer funds, we have water funds. Those are dedicated funds that take care of those types of projects. So I'm not really too concerned
about dipping into reserves to fund those projects. We just did raise across the board 4% for water, sewer, and stormwater to help bolster those funds for our projects that we have coming up and coming up down the road. The last thing that I want to bring up regarding this issue, and Councilor Vores brought it up and mentioned it, is that we are working on, this Halsey Corridor project with Wood Village and Troutdale. Essentially, the gateway to this project, there's going to be two gateways. There's going to be the bridge at the Sandy River in Troutdale, and the other gateway to this Halsey Corridor project that people are envisioning is going to be Fairview Parkway in Halsey. And I just don't believe that a red light camera at that intersection is going to be a very warm, inviting, and very welcoming piece to a potential gateway to an exciting economic project that can put a new face on Fairview, Wood Village, and Troutdale. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. I received an email from a citizen concerned that we were going to go ahead and move forward with the red light camera again. And the citizen's concern is that we would be having a camera corridor on Halsey by having a photo radar in the kids zone next to the schools, and then approximately 300 yards down the street we have a red light camera. And I have to agree with that a little bit, because I have never been in favor of red light cameras, but I did favor putting the photo radar in the school zone. I think it would be a detriment to the city to have both of those within 300 yards apart. If you've ever driven through Sherwood and you go through their city, you have 3, I believe, photo radars, and I am just not in favor of photo radar. I'm sorry, red light radar on 207th. So we will call for the vote. If you would do it by roll, please.
Okay, and with the new rules, we will be doing it alphabetical this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so Councilor Cooper,
Yes.
Councilor Kasakis,
Yes.
Councilor Kremeyer,
No.
Councilor Owen,
Yes.
Councilor Prom,
No.
Councilor Vores,
No.
Mayor Tostrud.
No.
So the motion failed.
Motion failed. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second. Second. We are adjourned. We will now move to the work session.